Welcome back to D&T in the 773. My name is Tyler. I'm joined alongside.
Daniel, welcome back, everyone. Back to
That
our
was
episode number 3.
episode number 3. Gonna quickly recap, rounds, 2 through 7 of the NFL draft. Ryan Poles was projected to only have, 2 more picks after the first round, but he ended up swindling a little bit more and he ended up grabbing 1 more pick. So 3 total picks in rounds 2 through 7. So we're going to quickly go over, obviously, all these players that Ryan Poles picked up, and also just a quick list of the undrafted players that Ryan Poles picked up as well. But Dan, just real quick to start off, how excited were you? Rounds 2 through 7. I know we only had 2 picks, but then we ended up picking third. But how excited were you about those?
I was pretty excited. Yeah, I was very excited because I know Poles is always going to find the guy that he needs, and with every position, right, we were always deciding whether it's defense, offense, no matter what position he got, and we'll see. Right, he got 1 pick. That was a player that I definitely would have never guessed.
Yeah,
someone on special teams. But I was very excited, and I think he got the guy he wanted. Regarding the pick that he traded for, in the 5th round. So I was really excited about it, and I think we got some pretty good pieces on our side. So I'm very excited. And Poles had a couple interviews after the draft, so he's very, very hard edged. He's
yeah,
answering the questions very softly, but I think that just shows that we got some winners. We got some winners
I
on our
agree.
side to the draft.
So yeah, let's just go over. So obviously, round one was in our last podcast, but round one we had 2 picks. We had number 1 overall with Caleb Williams, number 9 overall with Rome Odunze. Those star-studded picks. Very excited, obviously, for them to contribute to the offense for the Bears, and we'll just see obviously how they play in the 2024 season and how they perform in minicamp. But let's kick off round 2 through 7 for the Bears. So the first pick that the Bears had in round 2, I believe, was, let me just go through it real quick, was pick number 75. I'm sorry, not round 2. We were in round 3. We had to wait a little bit. So round 3, I know we kind of discussed what Ryan Poles was going to do. Would he go with the offense? Would he go with the defense? Would he potentially get another wide receiver to help, bolster up that offense? But with pick number 75 in round number 3, Ryan Poles decided to go with an offensive tackle. And I'm going to butcher his name a little bit, but his first name is Kiran, last name Amegadjie, I believe. And he's from Yale.
Amegadjie, yeah.
Yep. So also Kiran is a Illinois local. He is 22 years old. He's born and raised in Hinsdale, Illinois. And he also went to Hinsdale Central High School. And we all know how much Ryan Poles loves his local talent, being on the Chicago Bears, Cole Kmet being one of them. I believe last year with Robert Tonyan, he was a local as well. I know obviously he came from the Packers, but Dan, what about Kiran? What do you know about him a little bit?
Yeah, I'm really excited about him. Obviously, this is the pick that we were kind of expecting when we were talking about if we were to trade down from 9 or what we would take at 9. I think offensive tackle is huge because Poles always preaches the idea of defending the trenches, getting big in the trenches, and he was obviously an O-lineman in his day, so he understands what it takes. And I love the local guys. It feels like every year since Poles has been here, he's taking a look at these local guys as other than before, it just felt like we never had that many Chicago-born players or Illinois-raised players, and he's a big deal because he. People have been stalking his social media on Twitter and showing that he's been repping the Bears for a very long time. He hates the Packers already, so he's got to step in just fine. And I'm really happy for him because I think he deserves some spotlight here in Chicago, and I think he's going to do really well. A lot of people compared him to Braxton Jones, which is already a member of Chicago, and even then, that's a pretty high ceiling. So I'm very excited for him, and he's gonna be a good fit in the Bears. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, so a little bit, just little stats about Kiran. In the combine, he was the 9th ranked offensive tackle based on production, and based on total score from the combine, he was the 10th best ranked offensive tackle. So, to snag him in round 3, that was a big. I know Poles. I watched him a few days ago, talking about how he did with the draft and with Kiran, and he said that he was very happy that he slipped to him in the 3rd round. And he's obviously a local kid. We talked about that. And I'm really excited to see what he ends up, doing for the Bears. I know a few things that, the question marks on the offensive line with the Bears is that Braxton Jones, he's in his 3rd season, and he's kind of been a little iffy. He has games where he performs a little bit better, but there's other games as well where he, he's not A's letting, defenders slip right by him. So this could be an opportunity for Kiran to potentially take Braxton Jones' spot on the left tackle side.
Yeah, so Braxton is average. I'd say he's had a couple games where he looks above average, and I think he's still going to be a member of the Bears for at least a year or two, because I think he does provide really good reps for the team, and
Hmm.
he's he came in immediately as a starter, so he knows how to protect the quarterback really well, especially with Justin Fields being so mobile and Caleb Williams also having a little bit of that mobility, that talent. That's going to just help the same kind of guarding position, but I can see down the line, Kieran just taking that position and that being his spot for the
Yeah.
future.
No, I agree. I think training camp is really going to decide. I don't know if he'll jump right into that left tackle role, but he'll obviously probably be like the second slot right below Braxton Jones as well. I'm hoping that Karan can perform very well in the training camp, and he can potentially take that starting role, because hopefully this will be a push for Braxton Jones, saying that I need to perform a little bit better in order to stay on that line, because we're Poles is trying his best to bolster up that line right now. I know he's kind of helping or sticking to Caleb Williams' weapons on wide receivers and running backs, with DeAndre Swift and picking up Dunze, Keenan Allen. But it's obviously about protecting that quarterback too. So hopefully this is a little bit of a push for Braxton Jones to say, I really want to keep this starting role, and maybe he performs or has more training in the offseason and performs a little bit better. But we'll see what Karan does. I'm very excited to see him, a third round prospect. You never know what happens with these third round prospects. You never even know what happens with these 7th round prospects either. Anybody can be a starter.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So
And so we'll
Karan
see. We'll see in the
also, yeah,
future. We'll see in the
yeah,
future.
I
But I think
agree.
he fits in pretty well. He's going to be a backup, I'm sure,
Mm-hmm.
for the first season. But he'll fit in quite well. I know Poles is going to give him the opportunity that he's waiting for. So it's going to
I
happen.
agree. Yeah.
It's bound to happen.
So, and then, yeah, yesterday they just announced all of the players, what they're going to be wearing for their jersey number. And Karan will be wearing number 72 on the offensive line for the Chicago Bears. So, very exciting for him. I know he's really excited being a local kid. I saw the phone call with him, Poles calling Karan, and he's really excited that he gets to stay with Chicago. And I'm really happy for him. Very
Yeah,
happy.
good kid. I'm really
Mm-hmm.
excited. Hopefully someday we'll get the chance to watch him play, in a Bears uniform, like more than just a couple reps a game. But
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be an immediate impact, and he'll be well
I agree.
appreciated being a local kid.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to the next pick for the Bears. So, obviously, we talked about Karan in the 3rd round, and now Poles had to wait a little bit. He had to wait till the 4th round now with the 122nd pick. And to be honest, Dan, this was a little bit of a shocker for us, being Bears fans. A few years ago, Ryan Poles decided to draft a punter. And to be honest, the punter for the Bears didn't really, pan out to be that good. Trenton Gill, looking at his stats right here, he just didn't I think he was the last ranked offensive, or I'm
Yeah.
sorry, last ranked punter in the whole entire NFL last season.
And
So
that's okay, right? Because that happens. I'm not going to blame Poles for drafting a bad punter, because but punter is a
no,
big
yeah,
deal, especially in today's NFL. When we're looking at players that can make an impact, we're looking at above average, right? He was majorly below average in just the 1 year that he played for us, and
hmm
that's immediately a place where we can make some changes. So I thought this pick was a bit crazy, but the second I realized who this player actually is and how much his teammates gather around him and how everyone told him like he had a Heisman vote and stuff like that, put him on the Bears. Like I think the Bears
yeah.
definitely could use some special teams help.
Yeah, so with the 122nd pick in the 4th round, Ryan Poles decided to draft the punter from Iowa, Tory Taylor. And I don't know if you followed a little bit of college football last year, but Iowa was not really a good team at all. They had no offense. They could not even get down the field. So guess who was the main weapon for Iowa? Their punter, Tory Taylor. And he was very, very well. He performed very well. Like you said, he had a few Heisman votes just for how well he did with his foot being a punter. And this pick, actually, the reason why we got this pick is that because last season the Eagles decided to move from 10 to 9 and trade up with the Bears, and this is the reason why we got this pick. So Tory Taylor became ours because the Eagles decided to draft Jalen Carter last year and swap one spot with the Bears.
So a huge return, right?
Yeah.
Obviously trading from 8 to 9. That's or what I think it was 9 to 10. It's not that big
Mhm.
of a deal back then,
Yeah.
but today we look at it and we look at the idea that the punter, this is somebody that can be, a cornerstone of the team for the next 10 years. Like this guy could really make his mark if he performs well like he did in college. And that's going to be a really, I have high hopes for him. I have really high hopes
Yeah.
for him. And I'm very excited, the messages that he went in between with Caleb and other teammates. It seems like he's already welcome in. So I'm sure we'll get some highlight reels of him very soon in the Bears
Yeah.
practice facility. It'll be fun.
Yeah. I was actually working the Northwestern game this year at Wrigley, and they played Iowa. And like I said, what I was talking about earlier, Iowa's offense was not spectacular whatsoever. They could not even get a first down. So he really was that main weapon for that team. And, Tory Taylor, just a little bit about him. He's 26 years old. He was born in Melbourne, Australia, and he was one of the best punters last year in college football. He really was. Obviously,
if not the best,
usually,
right?
yeah, he usually is like when people look at, punters as well, nobody kind of like looks at the stats a little bit because it's like, oh, you just kind of punt, you got your offense off the field to punt. But he actually won the award for best punter in college football last year in 2023. So that's how well he performed.
Yeah,
And a little bit,
he's stud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a little bit just about him. His punts last season averaged about 48.3 yards per punt, which is pretty crazy. That's like, obviously half the football field right there, he's using with his leg. And so Bears fans, if you kind of were on Twitter a little bit, you guys kind of probably saw this news that Tory Taylor did receive a text from Caleb Williams right after he got drafted saying, don't expect to be punting too much. Our offense will, be on that field. So that's always a good sign. I love, the enthusiasm by Caleb Williams. I love that he is just so, attached to this team right now, and he believes in this team right now. Obviously, I hope that he believes in the team. We drafted
and he's
him
already kind of
overall,
putting some pressure on teammates where he's just like, hey, we have to perform. This is the level of excellence that we want to be at in my rookie season. So especially the guy at the punter, he's effective and he's good at what he does. But even then, right, Caleb's putting some pressure on the idea that like, hey, you're not going to punt that much this year, but when you do, we expect you to do exactly what you say you can do. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, so what does that mean for the Bears punter that we had, Trenton Gill? Well, yesterday we actually just got the news that the Bears did waive him, so he is no longer part of the Bears. So Tory Taylor has the starting job for the Bears punter, which if you draft a punter in the fourth round, which I believe that is the lowest punter drafted since 2012, if I recall correctly. I saw like the stat on Twitter with that. So obviously that's a big name, and Ryan Poles did say that Tory Taylor probably would not be sitting on that draft board any longer. Like he probably might get drafted early fifth round. So Ryan Poles wanted to make sure that he can get another weapon, on the offense as well, and help the Bears. He said make those teams uncomfortable. Pin them within the 10, pin them within the 5. Make that like the opposing offense uncomfortable when that punter comes out, because it's like, oh wait, we don't know where we're going to be on the field after this guy boots the punt away.
Exactly, that puts us at an advantage every single play. Right, that's exactly where we want to be. And last year we were that team. I remember there was games against the Rams, right? Hecker, there's just so many games in the last 2 seasons specifically that punters really made it hard for us, and we noticed that. And like, it would be nice to finally be on the opposite side.
And I remember that game or that week when we played the Rams. Actually, Johnny Hecker got voted the best special teams player of the week. And I remember talking to you. I was like, "This is so frustrating." Having the opposing punter be the player of the week. It's like, that shouldn't be like that, and hopefully Tory Taylor can do that every week for the Bears. Obviously, we hope he doesn't punt. That's all we're hoping for, is that our offense can stay on the field, score those touchdowns. But if it does come down where he's punting, if he could do a 48-yard punt and pin him within the 5, that's all, great for the Bears offense, and obviously hypes the Bears defense up as well. So lastly about Tory Taylor, they announced that he is going to be wearing number 19 for the Chicago Bears, number 19. And lastly, the last player that the Bears drafted in the 2024 NFL draft, Ryan Poles actually decided to trade back into the draft, because that after Tory Taylor, that was our last pick for the draft. We only had 4 total picks, and Ryan Poles decided, I need to get back in this draft. I need to draft somebody. There was a star talent that Ryan Poles really wanted. So he decided to trade a future 2025 fourth round pick with Denver in order to, sneak back into the draft this year. And with that 144th pick in the 5th round, Chicago Bears selected Austin Booker, who's an edge rusher from Kansas.
Guy's got power. I watched the highlights of his. He opposite of Montez Sweat, he is going to be, I think he might have some crazy potential in this league, and I see why we traded a pick next year for him this year. Guy's crazy. Guy's a stud, and he's got crazy energy, and he's got the height, size, all of it. So I see exactly why it was necessary for us to get back in there. I wasn't surprised that Poles got back into this draft. I thought there was a lot of talent still left over, so it definitely wasn't a surprise for me.
Yeah, so just quick stats about Austin Booker. He's 6'4", he's 21 years old. He was also named the first all Big East 12 Conference Player of the Year, Big 12 Conference Defensive Newcomer of the Year. Lots of other stats as well. He had 12 tackles for loss last season, 8 sacks, and he played 12 games with 1 start, 56 tackles, and then 2 forced fumbles as well. So, like you said, Dan, he could be a force on the other side with Montez Sweat. And I remember Ryan Poles did say that, like, he was shocked that Austin Booker was still there. He wanted to take
Mhm.
Tory Taylor in the 4th round, but all of a sudden Austin Booker still sat on that board. So clearly, I trust. We talk about this. I do trust Ryan Poles and the Bears coaching staff and the obviously the scouts and what they kind of observe with the NFL draft. And I'm shocked Austin Booker made it to the 5th round. And
Yeah, same here.
obviously, like you said, Ryan Poles needed to get in that draft, back in that draft, and take him. So traded a future asset for next year in the draft in order to snag Austin Booker. So very, very excited for him. I think I was reading, on the Combine website, I'm reading like what his pros and what his cons are. There's barely any cons about this guy. Maybe a con could be he hasn't started that much, but if that's the only con, training camp and mini camp and all that stuff can help him, get
Mhm.
those reps that he needs to potentially be an NFL star, which
Exactly.
we're
Even if he
hoping for the
doesn't,
Bears. Yeah.
yeah, he doesn't have to start in the NFL immediately, right? He could play some bench
No.
minutes, and that could be some really prominent minutes for him. And I wouldn't say that's a downfall. I'd say he's got more energy coming off the bench that way. But I could see him in a Bears uni, and I'm very excited for
Yeah.
that because he's got some energy, and I think it's one of the players we needed was definitely to address the defense. But I'm happy that we at least did that in this draft.
Yeah, so just a few like notes from that Combine website from the NFL. They kind of said that he really has excellent feel for turning the shoulders and like getting around those blockers' hands. Also, he's just a quick edge attack and great with spinning, and he just got a unique ability to work around those blocks. So like just reading all these stats right now, it just seems like he could, being just, a young talent. He's 21 years old. I think that Ryan Poles loves his young talent in the NFL and especially with the draft as well. That I think we're looking at a future star with the Bears, in my opinion. I really do.
I agree.
But yeah, and we're looking at, I was looking on Twitter, people are saying, oh, well, who is this Austin Booker guy? And people immediately go to that Combine website, and the player comparison that Austin Booker is compared to is Max Crosby, which reading that, that means
That's
you got to
pretty
have a
good.
lot of energy, and I'm beyond excited to read
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah, and that's good because Max Crosby's someone that terrifies offenses. He's someone
Mhm.
that he's the one single player on this Raiders defense that people are scared to play. So
Yeah,
if he's anywhere near to that, then we are very lucky.
I agree. And lastly, Austin Booker, he's going to be wearing number 94 for the Chicago Bears. That's a cool number. That
That's a cool number.
Montez Sweat's wearing number 98 right now, if I
I
believe.
remember
98.
94 was Robert Quinn.
Oh,
Robert Quinn
wow.
was 94. Yeah,
I can believe. Yeah, we traded him to the Eagles. That's right. Yeah.
traded him to the Eagles, and
Yeah.
then they lost in the Super Bowl. But you know what? That number's got some history to it.
Exactly. Yeah. He broke the sack record for the Bears.
He did indeed. 17.5.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, just like that completed the 2024 NFL draft for Ryan Poles, the coaching staff, the scouts, and I beyond excited for how he did with having 4 picks and sneaking in that 5th pick. I think he did really well. So we just going over, we had Williams, Rome Odunze, Kiran, Tory Taylor, and Austin Booker. Those are the 5 players that Ryan Poles decided, to draft this season. I'm very excited about that.
And a lot of different news programs said that we won the draft, right? With 5 picks, when originally having 4, which is the lowest amount of picks in the draft this season. It's insane. That's an insane feeling to have that people are giving us the A grade. We had number 1, number 9. We had to match those 2 players up together. But even like the later picks, everyone's saying, at least in the NFC North and the NFC, the best draft. And that's something I can't remember the last time we had that kind of, fame, let's say.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, reading all, ESPN and all these like, Bleacher Report and all these different, I think, having that A grade is like, it's beyond, amazing for Ryan Poles and that coaching staff with the draft, only having 4 picks. People with 4 picks are like, you usually get, I'm not saying like usually, but you sometimes get a C or like a B grading. But, obviously having, like you said, having that 1st pick and having that 9th pick, it's, big for, the Bears to walk away with 2 star-studded talents and then also get 2 more star-studded talents and trade back in and get another star-studded talent. So it's great.
Yeah.
It's great for the Bears. But yeah, just
so
quickly.
We can go into some players that we gotten that were undrafted free agents.
Yeah.
That were also rookies. And we have some pretty notable names here, but we can go through the list. First player that we had was Leon Jones, cornerback from Arkansas State. Ian Wheeler, running back / kick returner from Howard, which is one of the players that I think would make a pretty good position on the Bears, being a kick returner, because I think we need some help on that side still.
I agree.
Odeyu Hilaire, which is a wide receiver from Bowling Green. Carl Jones, linebacker from UCLA. Brendan Bates, tight end, Kentucky. Keith Randolph, defensive tackle from Illinois. Again, you always got to incorporate the local guys. Jamri Croma, defensive end from James Madison, which is a school that I know polls had a lot of players, in any mock drafts. I know James Madison was a school that I noticed a lot. So I believe that's one of the schools that polls had an eye on. Theo Benedet, offensive tackle from British Columbia. Reddy Stewart, cornerback from Troy. And Austin Reed, QB from Western Kentucky. And I have heard of Austin Reed. I've seen a couple playbooks of his, but I don't think there's a lot of room for another QB in this roster. What do you think of these players, Tyler?
I think Austin Reed's going to stay as like the third string. I know Caleb Williams tweeted, or I put on his Instagram post that he's really excited to Austin Reed to come to Western Kentucky. Obviously, he sees some potential in him, and I think he can, be that, third, that third slot. I know we just got Brett Rippon. I just thought about that in my head.
Yeah.
So
what do you think about Tyson Bagent?
Tyson Bagent,
because right now he's technically QB1. Yeah. He's technically QB1 if Caleb, hasn't taken that spot yet. But
correct, yeah. I believe Tyson Bagent's going to be that third slot. I know he's going to compete with Austin Reed. Brett Rippon's not a terrible quarterback. I know, obviously, he kind of filled in those shoes with the Rams when they had Stafford go down a few games. But I think Austin Reed and Tyson Bagent are going to be for that third spot. Tyson Bagent, when he had to, fill in the shoes last season when Justin Fields got hurt, he did not do, that bad at all. So
he didn't do that bad. Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind keeping him on the roster, obviously.
Yeah, and he, I know I went to training camp last year, and he was just so interactive with the fans. He really loved all the questions, and he was answering, and he just, loved, being part of it seemed like he just loved being part of the Bears, and that's what we love. Players that love being part of the organization, and quarterbacks that want to thrive in the NFL. So
so we got one last topic here to cover, right? It was a pretty wonderful draft. I mean, there's so much more to cover, and I'm sure in the next couple of podcasts we'll keep talking more and more about how the draft has impacted this team in the short term. But just a couple more things, which is something we promised we'd talk about in the last podcast. Tyler, do you want to hit it off?
Yeah, so we're talking about, grading obviously the Bears and their draft, because obviously when we were in our last one, we only went through round one. So we got through 2 through 7, and we're going to just talk about what we would give the Bears in our, our grade. So Dan, I'm going to start off with you. Obviously, we talked about what ESPN and Bleacher Report kind of graded the Bears. If you can give the Bears a grade in Ryan Poles for their NFL draft in 2024, what would you give them?
A+. A+, because I think this year is a bit of a combination of last year, right? The picks that we took from there have become the picks that we got this year. A+. I think it's the best draft the Bears have ever had. I think it's one of the best drafts that you'll see ever, coming from a Midwest team. So it's exciting time, and A+, nothing else.
I've given it a solid A++ as well. It just, having Caleb Williams, solid, potentially going to be a solid quarterback for the Bears. I'm really excited for him. And then, Rome Odunze, again, him at 9. I was watching, the Pat McAfee show yesterday, and Ryan Poles, and they asked him a question, who are you hoping to get to 9? And that was the guy top of his list the whole time. I know, obviously, there were rumors about Dallas Turner, rumors about other players potentially being at the top of Poles' list. Byron Murphy ended up, being like a player that could be at number 9 for the Bears. I know he was the heavy favorite the day of the draft, but Rome Odunze was, the player that Ryan Poles wanted to snag the whole time. And I'm really excited for, the wide receivers to get together, work with Caleb Williams in this offseason, have, hopefully conquer the NFC North, which would be very exciting for the, being Bears fans as well. And, another question here. Do you think Poles addressed the issues that we kind of talked about? Obviously we're talking about offensive line, defensive line. Do you think he addressed those issues in the draft?
I'd say so. I'd say the first round went well. I think the third round pick with Kiran went well. It's exactly what we needed. I wish there was a little bit of a better idea on what defense, what picks we're going to look at for defense. I think Booker's going to fit in very well. I'm very happy with that pick. I do think we addressed the issues. I just wish going into the draft we had a better idea of what issues needed to be addressed. But I think we addressed those.
Yeah. We talked about with the last podcast. I was like, we kind of had that question? Who do you think what positions do you think Ryan Poles is going to end up pulling off 2 through 7? I kind of said he's going to bolster up that offensive line. He might take an edge rusher, might take a cornerback or a wide receiver. Obviously, he didn't take that cornerback or wide receiver, but he did end up taking that offensive tackle. Did take an edge rusher and shocked all of us and took a punter and a star-studded punter. So I'm very excited. Like I said, I gave the Bears an A+ with the draft. Having only 4 picks, sneaking back in, grabbing one more, had 5 total picks. They did very well for 5 total picks. They really did.
Yeah, they did. They did indeed. So which player are you most excited about from the draft?
Obviously, Caleb Williams. It's got to be him.
It's obvious.
It's the the new face for the he wants to break. Obviously, Ryan Poles said he believes that this player is going to break the the terrible cycle that the Chicago Bears have had by not producing a quarterback. Caleb Williams is already he just I saw him. He posted a picture of him in the car listening to music. He was listening to Chief Keef. He's already
he's our guy.
He wants to become like in that Chicago culture. So I'm very excited. Obviously, Rome Odunze is a close second for me. I watched him in college football. He was just there's no flaws with him as a wide receiver. There really isn't. There's some people are like, oh yeah, he can't do the turns, or he needs to have a little bit more sprint speed. He's got it all. Rome Odunze really does. So Caleb Williams number 1 for me, and then very close right behind him, I got to put Rome Odunze. How about you? What do you think?
I think we're all excited for Caleb. I think Rome is definitely a complete player that I'm really excited to see. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to say Booker. I'm excited for the last pick that we had.
That's a good
I think he's going to come out swinging. I think these Bears defensive ends, even like Javon Dexter last season, they really have this edge when it comes to Chicago defense. And I think Eberflus is going to kind of, let Shane do his thing with Caleb and Rome and let them figure their thing out. I think Eberflus is going to go really strict on Booker and try to get him some good quality reps in the first season. So I'd say I'm most excited for him. I think he's going to develop really well.
It's a good answer too. Yeah, Austin Booker, I'm very excited to see how he does in minicamp, and then hopefully slide into the DN role. I know Poles is already talking about. I know they asked him a question like, "Are you kind of looking at other players?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm always looking at other players." So we'll see if he ends up in the next few weeks signing some often. I know there's rumors that maybe Yannick Ngakoue might come back. His season kind of had it kind of. Ended shortly with a broken ankle, and he started to get rolling, but maybe Austin Booker can slide into that starting role. That's all we hope for as Chicago Bears fans, And then, just a few more questions. Let's just do like this one I have right here. How do you think the Bears draft compared to, any of the NFC North teams? The other ones, the Lions, the Packers, and, obviously, the Vikings. Oh my gosh, I can't even think of the other NFC North team.
Trust me, I forget about the Vikings all the time too. I think Detroit had an okay draft. Green Bay, I'm not even going to touch on it. I think they did a pretty good draft too, but it's just not. I don't think it's that big of a development. They also got some players back from the Aaron Rodgers trade. But I think Minnesota had a good draft. I think Minnesota got the players, again, the same way the Bears did, where they got their QB and then they got their second guy. They got Dale Turner, right, at number 19, I believe it was, or 17. But I think they had a pretty good draft. It wasn't better than the Bears, but I think comparing it, I think they did, in the same direction where they got some generational pieces that are going to try to help them out. I'm not sure about J.J. McCarthy being that guy, but at the end of the day, you got to take those kind of chances. I know that being a Bears fan, we've taken plenty of those kind of chances, but I think the Vikings, out of all the other teams, had a pretty good draft compared to the Bears.
I agree. I'm a little biased. I think the Bears had the best draft, obviously, me being a Bears fan. But, just having, like I talked about, having 5 total picks and, Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, Austin Booker, Tory Taylor, Kiran. I think that was an excellent draft for the Bears. And I just think, I think there's a lot of teams scared of the Bears right now. I know some people on Twitter are like, no, we're not. We're never scared of the Bears. But looking at the wide receiver core right now and DeAndre Swift and, the defense, Jalen Johnson signing that extension. I think that culture is finally coming to Chicago, and it's it's going to be fun to watch.
True. So unfortunately, I think that is all the time that I have for today's episode, if that's all right.
Yeah.
But we have one more thing to cover, but I think this thing we can kind of, put more thought into. We could probably add that for the next episode that we have here. We were going to go over the projections for William and Odunze, but I guess that's something that we can definitely wait for, because I like my numbers, but I think,
We'll give our projections on Williams and Odunze after once training camp starts and mini camp, and kind of once this Bears roster kind of forms just a little bit more with the within the summer and stuff like that. But Dan, I was really excited being, obviously being a Bears fan with this, draft with Ryan Poles and, the coaching staff. I'm just beyond pumped. I'm hoping to
Yeah.
go at least a few games this year, maybe go up to Green Bay and, go to the Bears Packers up there. That would be a lot of fun. But, this draft was a lot of fun for the Bears. A lot of fun.
Yeah, and it was an absolute pleasure, celebrating with you this draft.
Yeah.
Every single part of the way, we've done our episodes, we've been at the draft ourselves, so it's been a pleasure doing this with you, and I can't imagine a draft going any better or another draft being just as much fun as this one. So it was a lot of fun being there with you and talking about it, but there's more to talk about. These players are now Bears in the Bears uniform. They have their number, so we're no longer talking about the draft. We're talking about the roster. So now is when things get important.
Exactly. So this is kind of a little bit of a break for the Bears. After the draft, there's a little bit of a wait time for, training camp and everything like that. So we'll be back when, training camp kind of kicks off, or if there's any other offseason moves with Ryan Poles, we'll obviously, bring them to you guys. We obviously, like I said, we always appreciate all the, the watching and supporting us. We just love, talking about the Bears and the Bulls, every Chicago sport that we can bring to you. And,
Exactly.
It's just, we're really excited to bear down, in the fall, and it's an exciting time to be a Bear fan. So
yeah, very exciting time. Bear down.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy your week. Enjoy the spring as well. And we'll be back whenever there's big news within the Bears organization, within the Bears roster. So thank you guys so much. Yeah. Thanks, Dan, for, coming, and bear down.
Bear down. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.